What is particular or what is spectacular about what Senator Ningi said? Is there any kind of 3 trillion part of the budget that was not public knowledge or that was not known? That looks like the foundation of what got Senator Ningi into trouble.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think as the Senate session was going on, we were also fact-checking and pouring on the numbers within my team. And one of the key things we found out that we were not able to lay hold to the claim by Senator Ningi. A budget of 28.77 trillion was passed into the law. We were not able to see in any situation where 3.7 trillion naira, there always, historically, there are items in the budget that do not have a breakdown. So, for example, the statutory transfers like NJC and the NHRC and the NDDC, they don't have statutory breakdown. TED funds, they don't have statutory breakdown. That has been a campaign and advocacy point. But that does not mean that there's a certain level capital projects by the federal government that is now being appropriated and do not have a breakdown. Let's not forget the entire capital project is around 9 trillion naira that was signed into law. So to say there's a 3.7 trillion naira amount somewhere and that amount does not have a breakdown, and we can't find that in the budget now on analysis. So what I expected was him to bring his own breakdown, to say this is what I've looked at, this is what I've checked, and this is what I can find. But it's we don't have evidence to back that up. There are statutory elements in the budget that there are no breakdowns, but that does not seem unusual. It seems like the situations from the past.
All right, so let's take a look at it. In the 2024 budget as presented by President Tinubu on the 29th of May, he presented a budget of 27.50 trillion naira. But by the time the National Assembly passed it, there's been an addition of 1.27 trillion, which now brought the budget to 28.78 trillion. Am I right?
Yes, you're right on that, perfectly right. And if you look at that budget, there is deeper than that. Because part of that budget, the budget we have right now, have the MDA's budget, which is called the Ministries, Departments and Agencies budget. Then we also have now the GOE's budget, which is the Government-Owned Enterprises budget. A chunk of that budget, out of that budget, around 2 trillion naira of the budget presented by the president is the Government-Owned Enterprises budget. So if Senator Ningi says there's a 25 trillion naira budget, yes, that is the MDA's budget. It's different from government-owned enterprises, their budget has now just added. We have a 27.7 trillion. What the National Assembly, in their own analysis, is to take around 900 billion out of the budget for the GOEs, and they added 1.2 trillion naira, new budgets. So if you look at technically the entire addition, that National Assembly, it might look like 1.2 trillion, but the total sum of the project, based on our analysis and finding, is around 2.2 trillion naira, because the budget for the GOEs was brought down from 1.95 trillion to 1 trillion naira. So they took down the budget of the GOEs, they added another extra 1.2 trillion, and they were able to insert project around 2.2 trillion. That is part of the conversation where we have from the senator that says, everybody was indiscriminately getting an allocation for an amount. Some people got 500 million. We've done the analysis. Some senators that had projects around 13 to 11 billion in their constituency. And it looks like it was a free-for-all. And before this budget was passed, we said the president needs to have a grip of the budget. This is the same thing Muhammadu Buhari's government did. And why he spent so much, he borrowed so much, and he achieved so little. The president is on the same pathway again. The answers will not be different. Why? Because we are not spending money targeted at development. Most of the projects in the budget, there are over 1,000 bulbs, over 700 street lights in this budget.
So we'll get to those details just in a bit. From part of the analysis that you and your team did, there are areas where maybe that was what Senator Ningi was making reference to, were excluded from the budget breakdown, which include TED Fund, National Judicial Council, the National Assembly, the Public Complaints Commission, going to about 3.32 trillion, isn't it? Or why is this unusual, though? If this is what Senator Ningi seemed to have flagged.
It is factual that he says that, but I mean, it doesn't mean that we are running two concurrent budgets. There's a different conversation that those projects should be detailed. You know, TED fund should come and not just get an allocation. What are you spending money on? The INEC has been collecting huge sums of funds. There is no public detail about what those funds are used for. The same way with the NJC, even National Assembly. In this current budget, the National Assembly gave a very broad summary of its allocations, but there are no detailed allocations at the granular level that anybody can interrogate. So there is a bigger conversation.
So it shows an opaqueness of some sort. Yeah. So you cannot just say we're spending a particular envelope with figure on it without giving Nigerians the details.
Exactly.
Transparency issues.
These are big transparency issues, and that if you bring all those funds together, they're around 3.5 to 3.7 trillion. So if that is what he wants to interrogate on, that there are components of the budget where there are no breakdown, that is very factual. But if the executive and the National Assembly needs to push back and say, we need a breakdown. What is the NJC spending on? We gave more money to the NJC and say, take what are they spending all that money on? There should be a detailed breakdown to the public about the same way you have detailed breakdown of the agriculture budget, the finance budget, the budget of national planning budget. There should be a detailed breakdown of that. I think on that point, Senator Ningi is right. But to look at say we're running two parallel budgets and there's a certain amount that is held back, and no, I don't think that is factual.
So let's go to the part where there seems to be some rumples, and that's where Senator Onigbinde said, look, you got 500 million. I didn't. I'm a ranking senator. It's only perhaps in the political class, it is when they get and did not get that we hear the hue and cry. But let's get to what caught your eyes, Seun? You gave a breakdown of the distribution of the project by value. 7,447 projects, up to 2.24 trillion, was inserted in the 2024 budget. 55 of the projects range about 580 billion, are greater than 5 billion in value. 281 projects worth 491 billion were inserted in the budget. 3,706 of those projects within the range of 100 to 500 million, what 759 billion was also inserted in the budget. Give us a breakdown. Why does this look like a discrepancy to you?
It's a big problem. And if you look at it, this did not start with the National Assembly. This started with the 9th National Assembly. This whole arbitrarily indiscriminate insertion of projects by the National Assembly where, because I agree to some extent that appropriation powers belong to the National Assembly, but powers must be used in a responsible manner. That is what I believe. The National Assembly has gotten to a point that it now, after the budget has been presented by the executive, it carves out an amount for itself. It allocates those amounts to each of the senators. Let's not forget, previously, there was a constituency fund for projects, and that was 100 billion naira. And everybody agreed that if that is the sacrifice you are going to make to allow the budget to be passed, if that's what you're going to use to oil the wheels of budget passing, let us have that. And if you're going to raise that to 200 billion or 250 billion, considering that the budget is now have gotten bigger compared to previous years, that's fine. But for you to now go and add over 7,000 projects to the budget at over 2.2 trillion naira, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, and you give us the details of how these budgets, the breakdown. For example, you give us categories. Category 1,150 street lights worth 212 billion, 427 boreholes worth 82.5 billion, 170 ICT projects with a value of 30.95 billion, 7.61 billion for empowerment of traditional rulers. Yes, you heard it right. For empowerment of traditional rulers. Seun.
We are bringing the churches. People now put construction of Anglican church hall in the budget. And that's what we have become now. It's no longer about what is framed as national development. This is not a local government budget. This is not a state budget. This is the government of the federal government of Nigeria. And it's now become so indiscriminate that everybody now inserts. And the president did not take its time to review the budget. And this could have taken 3 or 4, 5 days to analyze, push back a little bit, and now get a proper budget.
I mean, do you think, Seun, that maybe the president or the executive does not have the time to scrutinize all the National Assembly and twisted because of their own influence and their powers of appropriation to ensure that they get all of this into at a time that we said Nigeria does not have money?
Look, I mean, politics, I mean, governance in democracy is about forbearance. I mean, it's not because you have every power that you have to use it. It's about understanding that what is important in the bigger goal. What is the bigger goal out here? We are supposed to be in a period of fiscal tightening. We knew what lose money in the economy, what it did to the imbalances in the economy. Because at the end of the day, if you don't generate the revenues to deliver this project, what are you going to do about it? You likely start borrowing for some of these projects that do not have value, or you also now go and do ways and means, because you're under pressure to deliver some of these projects. So we are lying to ourselves at the end of the day.
So,
we are trying to tighten on the monetary side, but not lose on the fiscal side. It will never add up.